Mr. Mayor, civil and military authorities, dear friends, directors, CEO, and dear members of the BOD of Bocconi University, dear alumni, dear students, dear professors, teachers, members of the staff, dear students, and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you also on my part for being here and for taking part in this hybrid opening ceremony, because as Mr. Monti said earlier on, last year was our first virtual ceremony and this is the first hybrid one, and I'm sure that the hybrid format will never leave us. It is too powerful not to complement our presence here in the Aula Magna. And I would also like to join Mr. Monti's greetings to Mr. Brad Smith for being with us in such an important day for our institution. I will now read the report that you can find also in the QR code. And since their birth, economics, business administration, and social sciences as a whole have critically analyzed the fundamental issue of the impact of capitalism on society. I believe that no one can question that capitalism has been the main source of prosperity in modern human history. And it is equally evident that its specific functioning over the last 2 centuries has led to a number of contradictions that today require to be rethought profoundly. This is why, since the end of the 20th century, a large group of scholars have brushed up some central values of a more enlightened notion of entrepreneurs and economic actors in general. Such notions certainly appeared also in the first writings by moral philosophers and scholars of industrial enterprise, but all this has been gradually abandoned, replaced by strict liberalism that produced the globalization we know today. Although interest has grown in these studies, they have been a minority, with an important original sin. They presented a normative vision of the main engine of capitalism and not the company, and not a positive vision as science requires. Consider, for example, the so-called stakeholder theory, that is the importance and inclusion of the company's stakeholders vis-à-vis shareholders in defining their objectives and operations. Although hoped for since the earlier writings on business administration in operations, it has remained evanescent. Just take a look at the composition of the board of directors of most companies in the Western world, which only reflect the interest of shareholders and not of the other stakeholders. And also think of the important effort made by many institutions to produce sustainability reports. They stem from innovative, though makeshift, efforts of individual companies without clear guidelines certifying their quality. There have also been a few important media moments that have enhanced sustainability in the last few years. And I can think about the well-known letter of Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, to all CEOs of big corporations. And I'm thinking about the Business Roundtable, which in the summer of 2019, before the pandemic, as Mr. Monti was saying, led 250 managers of the main US corporations to sign an agreement on the relevance of stakeholders compared to shareholders. And I'm thinking about the cross-sector initiative of the European CEO Alliance in Europe in 2020 that signed a 55% reduction in carbon emissions for 2030. But besides all these calls to arms, we can define them like this, sustainability has maybe been more a wish than a mainstream in behavior in the world of economics. And also at the macro economic level, the cry of pain of Thomas Piketty, but also the awarding of the Nobel Prize in 2019 to development economists, Professor Duflo, Banerjee and Kremer, have certainly produced some interest and some attention, but they did not appear to represent a definite shift in perspective. So if this is the starting point, nevertheless, the 3 recent events must help us make the issue of sustainability central in the framework of a new vision of capitalism that we like to call sustainable capitalism. The first one concerns growing awareness on the impact of industrial activity over the stability of the planet's climate system. In the century of mass production and globalization, the temperature of the globe has increased by 1 degree Celsius, mainly due to mass industrialization, differently from what happened during millennia. The solution to climate change cannot be postponed as it emerged from complex negotiations of the recent COP26 meeting, and earlier than that during the G20 meeting held in Italy. The second concerns the pandemic provoked by COVID-19. For the first time in recent history of humankind, the global spread of a virus has forced all industrial countries to substantial lockdown, proving the fragility of the international healthcare system, but also pinpointing the non-sustainability of global production chains and supply chains built on a sometimes exploited vision of world labor. Before these two threats, there is also a third one, which is also heralding some profound opportunities for the future of our society. The presence of digital technology based on information that allows us to implement a new infrastructure of knowledge to seek effective and real-time solutions to make it possible to solve issues posed by a complex world to society. Digital transformation is indeed flooding us with great quantities of data, thanks to which we are becoming better at measuring macro and micro phenomena. And this allows us to imagine some innovations that can rewire the strategic and organizational processes of our institutions. And in general, digital transformation is the infrastructure based on which the industrial future can be designed. And an excellent example of this is the coordination required to deal with the pandemic. The ability to share protocols and data has allowed pharmaceutical companies to decrease to 8 months the production time of a vaccine that until a few years ago would have taken 10 years on average, and also to find more or less effective solutions in therapeutical terms. As Mr. President was reminding us, we have rectors of Italian universities and also the rectors that have governed the medical complexity. A round of applause for them because they have saved us from the pandemic.
Questi tre eventi.
These three events that are extremely important projects us towards sustainable capitalism which requires rethinking the enterprises that from a machine producing profit driven by Homo economicus shall evolve towards sustainable enterprise resting on a digital infrastructure and economic and social values. That is a company increasing combining profit and purpose, the term that has emerged in the last 5 years as a bridge between business and society, private and public interest, mechanical and rational soul of finance and industry, and the beating heart of stakeholders and territories. This is a hard task, but it's not an impossible one. It is hard because sustainability is not a gala dinner, so we need to change the system to reduce emissions, to write new protocols, focusing on rules that we are not used to, and learn new tasks to work differently. It is hard also because if you want to deal with that scientifically in economic terms, we need to have clarity on the measurement of impact. I would say that purpose and sustainability are left to the independent initiative of the board of directors, and there are over 400 standards by which corporate sustainability can be measured. So it is positive for the International Finance Reporting Standard to be working in this direction to simplify and streamline them so that auditors can correctly control them and investors can adequately judge the performance of companies. But we are saying this task is not impossible for two reasons. In a moment of maximum financial liquidity, the demand for innovation is high, and the world of finance seems to be increasingly sensitive, more sensitive to the issue of sustainability, further expanding the reach of incentives included in Next Generation EU Fund. The second crucial factor lies in the new cohort of consumers, and this inversion in favor of sustainability is especially the result of a contribution, extraordinary contribution of Generation Z, represented by youngsters who are in our rooms, in our halls, that have different characteristics from the previous ones, and also movements such as Fridays for Future that have amplified the unquestionable voice of science and have peacefully prodded politics with the slogan of blah, blah, blah. And even more decisively, Generation Z Z, in the company of millennials, those who were about 18 in the year 2000, are pushing the market for sustainable products to replace, of course, polluting ones, and are looking for jobs that reflects preferences consistent with new challenges. And a company that wants to grow cannot underestimate all these stimuli. So what is missing then? The stone... this is our will to innovate in this direction. Companies must combine contents that are very distant from each other, material engineering and economic implications. Some other areas with the legal impact, the science of the environment and the science of politics. So we need to set them by combining different experts in corporate functions for sustainability, and we must give them not only visibility but also centrality of action. It is also crucial to help schools and universities to teach them from the beginning of the educational path, which at present does not happen. Statements of Minister Messa were very positive on the subject of specialized and university education that are increasingly technical, but at the same time interdisciplinary. So at this point, it is up to all of us, consumers, shareholders, investors, managers, and policymakers. We have to make that leap to turn the world into a better place, as it is also required by the contract, the agreement we signed with Europe for our children. This will be the only possible way to progress also with the NIPOCO, with a very defined change. And concerning the institutions, we would like to say that Bocconi has in its legacy sustainable capitalism. Bocconi University was born thanks to a very successful entrepreneur based on the so-called give back. In an academic world that was training only doctors, jurists, and engineers, Ferdinando Bocconi addressed women and men of the world of business and commerce and administration, those who would be fundamental, especially during the Second Industrial Revolution of mass production. And the ambitious nature of their education resulted in a degree course in economics and business, which had to impact society positively, as it emerged in this description by Leopoldo Sabatini, the first rector of our university in 1902. 70 years later, in the period between the 60s and the 70s, fueled by industrial tensions with the world of work, the first professional school of management in Italy was born, still in the name of sustainability. The SDA Bocconi School, which has celebrated its first 50 years this year. And Claudio De Mattei and the young colleagues who worked with him to build and launch the project imagined a different management school than the Anglo-Saxon one, which could grasp the spirit of times combined with the continuous challenge for modernity and progress. And as SDA Bocconi 20 years ago, the Department of the School of Law followed the same way as Angelo Sraffa, to whom the department is dedicated, pointed out. And this was dedicated to social sciences and contributes to having a strong impact on society. Thanks to this strong base, today's Bocconi University stands ready to accept the challenges of sustainable capitalism. Today, Bocconi University can count or rely on international quality faculty that is re-getting the coming back of brains, which is positive for Italy. This year is a year of records in terms of number of new colleagues, and thanks to the work coordinated by Professor Francesco Billari, Dean of the Faculty, and by our department heads and the team. And our, of course, professors are 138, and some of them are international, and one-third women, in line with the main social science universities around the world. We have welcomed 6 ordinary associate professors that you can see in this chart. And we would also like to welcome the 23 new assistant professors that you can read in this, you can see in this other slide. And please notice the important institutions of origin where they got their PhD. And Bocconi University, of course, subscribes the implicit agreement with the other university that do not, of course, hire their PhDs to promote circulation of brains and knowledge. The quality of the research group in Bocconi is confirmed by the scientific production, including the number of publications in top magazines, which is growing, and the high number of professors are in charge of editing. And I would like to thank Professor Jérôme Madda, the Dean for Research, and the team dedicated to research. And just as Bocconi University is attractive to professors, it increasingly acts as a catalyst for new generations who want to study in the field of social sciences and data computer sciences. The constant increase in applications allows us to make an increasingly rigorous selection, or also raising the quality of students at the point of entry. But we will see that this is not related to economic selection, because we have a very high number of scholarships. The university school and the high university school and the law school, School of Law, had a 1 to 5 selection rate despite the COVID pandemic. And we would also like to thank our guidance and recruitment services, and we would like to talk the deans of the school, Professor Annalisa Principe, Pietro Sirena, and Antonella Caru. And the PhD school, guided by Andrea Fosfori, have reached 1 out of 20, which is an internal record for Bocconi University. Overall, there are 15,000 professionals and managers who attend Bocconi University, and they get to a certain amount if we consider only courses in English, which have become most of them. This international exposure creates an even more open-minded, and despite a slowing down of the market of labor, this confirms that 94% is employed 1 year after graduation. So recognizing the quality of our training model, educational model, in 2021, recognition comes from different bodies, and let me mention 2 of them. The Class World University ranking placing Bocconi University 4th in Europe and 16th at a global level in social sciences. And I would like to thank Professor Caselli, who is the Vice Rector for this and working on crediting and rankings. SDA Bocconi is confirmed 5th among European schools, and it has also been credited differently, and in particular when it comes to business school, sustainability, it appeared as one of the very few business schools in the world to have obtained triple accreditation from the leading international assessment bodies, CSB, Equistambin, and I heard Professor Soda, Dean of the School of Management, and all the team of Bocconi.
Like steam during the first industrial revolution and electricity during the second, digital is a general purpose, and it is a cross-section and has an impact in horizontal across in all sector of production. It is a good circle, and both artificial intelligence and scientific topics take advantage from that. Among them, social sciences are also taking benefit from that. And digital represents the infrastructure of sustainable capitalism, and Bocconi has internalized by strengthening and transforming across 5 years our way of doing research and teaching. Our actions were driven by the awareness of how crucial it was for the future of society to train future leaders. So as for the education, we carried on with the traditional programs in traditional science, bachelor's and masters. So you know that Python programming language is taught here, and both with the most recent one with a bachelor in mathematics and computer sciences. Digital has not changed the course talent, but also teaching methods and equipment. And thanks to Professor Caporarello, Director of Build Bocconi University Innovations and Learning and Teaching, and all the involved ones, a new technique of teaching has been then implemented. We try and prepare the university for the new change, and so we have a change into the digitalization. And so we are also experiencing some new models. We have computer science impacting together with the fact that Bocconi University enriched its human capital. As you can see here, we have next to professors in social sciences, some researchers and theoric physicists. And many of them cooperate, for example, in our Bocconi Institute for Data Science. During the last academic year, Bocconi had two different, we have 40 projects. We have 3 new than teaching places, Amplifon Chair in Customer Science, Vodafone Chair in Machine Learning in Data Science, and the one in Marketing Sciences. We've just reached a deal with Algornat Foundation for FinTech Lab, and Professor Tebaldi contributed to that. He will deal with FinTech topics like digital currency and so on. During the last 5 years, we have done a path, and we wanted to have some solar energy also installed. Today, we have a group of international professors, diversified, and they are dealing with technological sciences, with the implementation on a broad scale, also dealing with artificial intelligence. Over the last few years, we could then be involved in some other initiatives, and we try and then have machine learning in Europe implemented. Bocconi University is a university of Milan, together with Milan Bicocca and Milan Polytechnic, has been accepted as a unit of this association, making Milan one of the major European scientific centers in the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we are central and have a central role in this field. If digital represents the infrastructure of sustainable capitalism, we have the so-called ISG principles. And these principles apply to university that makes the impact of knowledge its motto, represent a field of study and a terrain on which to grow good practice and behavior, both at an individual and community levels. Bocconi has included these goals in its Vision 2030, and as Mr. Mario Monti said, also in its plan 2021-2025. We did it thanks to the support by the group led by Mr. Perrini, which for years has helped us to evolve with the complexity it also oversees for sustainable development. The letter E for environmental stands for environmental and evaluation criteria of its behavior towards the environment. We have 5 then actions with specific focuses. Then we have sustainability by Professor Fracchia, then another lab supported by the supervision and cooperation by 4 different, like Heinz, Intesa San Paolo, Milano Sesto, and Prelios. And then we have another program with the small and middle enterprises, thanks to the foundation of Fini and led by Professor Lini and Chini, thanks to the partnership with Group Atlanta and SDA Responsible Patient and Revival Fashion, supported by CRE. With reference to education, the attention to environment has always been high here in Bocconi. And now we have also a program that is ranking the first place together with Yale University. We have had different than teaching going from 26 to 88 in 2020. The news of this year was the activation of a new program creating a startup in digital and sustainable economy, held by Marchetti, founder of the first unicorn Yox, promoting an awareness at an environmental level is part of our community. And Bocconi University has done concrete actions that you will find in my speech, together with the development of a new wing of the campus. As for the effort to make the campus sustainably environmental good, was also due and possible thanks to our managing director, Taranto. Talking about the G and S for social organization, and it means also the capability of inclusion. Practices for inclusion, a deal on the territory, diversity, and the new knowledges on the topic. As a first point, to prove that this is important at a social level, having professors and students coming from 100 and more countries, we have a new dean then responsible for diversity and inclusion. And we had the sharing and commitment of all community parts, also thanks to the candidates for diversity for each faculty, and also with the representatives of the students. As you can see here in the pictures, we have the professors and also the professor responsible for diversity and inclusion, then faculty. And then we have as for the inclusion and diversity, a good position of the Bocconi University. And inside Bocconi University, all people are welcomed. As for the topic pride and gender, we have a good ranking. As we said at the beginning, we also have an economic plan. As for inclusion and diversity, Bocconi University always makes an effort to make sure that all students, no matter what their economic situation is, have access to the higher education. So to support scholarship, we delivered many scholarships and exemptions for the students. It is an investment granting 1 out of 4 students, or 38 million euros will be invested in financial benefits. Among these, I would like to mention the 107 students benefiting from the Una Scelta Possibile program, launched starting from 2013-14. This year, 91 students took advantage of these funds. 21, sorry. Thanks to the generosity of many donors, businesses, they also believe in importance of education, and they want to grant the access to education. The activity of fundraising is coordinated by Busacca, Dean for Fundraising and Alumni Engagement, and together with the staff. On behalf of these young people and Bocconi University, I would like to thank all those who have been enabling many students to attend Bocconi, thanks to their donations. For our alumnus, Luca Atanasio, and we have then had fundraising, and so we had 5 scholarships for students of African origin then implemented thanks to this fundraising. But the attention that Bocconi University has for the students is just equal to the one of Milan and the city. It's an exchange of solidarity. So the relationship then is good with our, let's say, neighbor. This year we have started a new important program to support Pane Quotidiano with its action, both internally and externally, to support the communication and to then facilitate their actions. We have opened our sports center, open to the city of Milan. We think it's a very good thing. Topics of inclusion and diversity are also a field of research here. We can't do that without then progressing. We have also launched SDA, then X Research Lab on Gender Equality, directed by Professor Paola Profeta. And to these topics, there are some actions done, the project of Professor Alfani and by Professor Melegaro. She is also managing AXA Greece Lab, together with an important study together with a Humanitas hospital was done, and it is very important in Italy. And then G includes the governance for ESG. We have to then adopt sustainable actions. It's a very important field, and this makes the difference between our university and other universities. According to this, upon this topic of research, we had a program IFA in memory of Mr. Falk, guided by Gorpetta, and we have also another chair in accounting given to Ms. Principe. And then we have another management of technology faculty with a scientific approach to understand how big data and scientific community can make better decisions in management and governance. Apart from the research, our university can develop a framework if she can talk and listen to the stakeholders to work on a strategy. Bocconi University has developed platforms of communication, of dialogue and debate that allows its governors to design long-term strategies. The International Advisory Council, established in 2009 and chaired until his death by Mr. Borges, and today Mr. Monti and Giovazzi are the chairman of that. And we have some Italian entrepreneurs who are important. We have a mix of skills, different origins of the industries. And then we have some other important thing, enriching our strategies. The second type of platform is Bocconi alumni community, the community of our 120,000 students all over the world, guided by Silvia Candiani. Alumni are ambassadors of Bocconi University. The alumnus of the year, Matteo Del Fante, is witnessing then, and he enabled to allow and facilitate a COVID-19 vaccination campaign, making available a group of digital platforms. Then we have Barbara Cominelli, CEO of GL Italy, who has been named Senior Alumni of the Year of CHEMS. And then we have, thanks to the partner of development, we are talking to big companies, to small companies, to find and understand better the needs of the labor market, to then develop better skills for the future market. So I come to my conclusions. Bocconi has got in its DNA then sustainable capitalism, and since its foundation, it has operated by following the thrust of its internationalization, aware that only by opening up to the world could it best work in favor of Italy. We are committed to consolidating and spreading the European spirit, and we know that we have to understand the needs of the community, and we have to be able to support those needs. At Bocconi University, we are actually building up an infrastructure to enable then digital transformation. We are also doing our best to ESG then principle and be compliant with them. We try and analyze the fact, and we try and focus on a startup and B4I today, and this year is open to all entrepreneurs in Italy. We have received 1,106 applications for that. Under the guiding of Marcus Wenzing, we also activated the Dean of Innovation. This year also we have the Innovation and Corporate Entrepreneurship Center to service companies who want to improve their innovation capacity. With the same spirit as the Bocconi, starting from 2022, will work together with Fincantieri over a 3-year-long project to develop entrepreneurship in southern Italy, which will involve artisan and industrial company. SDR Bocconi for Governance is the new project aimed at supporting the public administration in facing and managing the profound changes required by the PNRR. We are doing the best, best to improve a future generation and help them to face challenges with more skills. As described, it was possible thanks to the commitment of the Economic Council here on the floor, then our faculty, management, all the staff, plus also the openness and stimuli of our student body. On the floor, we have the representative of the Board of Directors and Academic Council members. Also thanks to the guidance and vision of governments that dialogues with the stakeholders, interpreting their needs, that was also important. Here you see the table with the people, and I would like to thank the President Mario Monti. I would like to also thank Riccardo Taranto as Managing Director. He is my referent person in everyday life, then Diego Piacentini and Andrea Sironi. And we also would like to think of Mr. Colau, who was also part of our community before going to have duty for the government. Thanks to Javot Bocconi Institute, and it is the main reference for Bocconi University. I would like to thank you for listening to me, and now I declare that the academic year 2021-2022 is officially open, the 120th year of our institution.